All right, here we go. Thank you. Thank you, Megan or Sarah, for adding that little technical errors blip. Really appreciate that. Again, welcome back to OutSchool Live. We're talking to Sarah Smithers on why classroom educators homeschool. I'm just gonna cut straight to it. Welcome, Sarah Smithers, to the stage. Dun, 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 dun.
Technical difficulties, please stand by.
Yeah, thank you. I made it. It's that kind of day. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Now my head is all flustered because I was like, oh, technical errors. So I'm gonna breathe in. All right. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone else for joining us here at OutSchool Live. I already see some viewers coming in. If you're watching right now, go ahead and let us know where you're watching, what part of the world you're in. Currently, I'm over here in New Zealand. Sarah, what part of the world are you in?
I am in Ohio in the United States.
Excellent. And Sarah is with us because Sarah, you were a classroom educator who now homeschools, has
I do.
homeschooled.
Yes, we just entered our 7th year of homeschooling. So my family is what I like to call educationally eclectic. 3 kids. We have done basically every type of education, private school, public school, homeschooling. My oldest is now a sophomore. I have to think about it every time I say it. I can't believe she's that old, but she is a sophomore in college. And then I am homeschooling my 7th grader and my 5th grader.
Okay, so you started, maybe is that like around 12? Your oldest started homeschooling when they were
My
12?
oldest went all the way through private, then into public high school, and then now she is at a state university. And then I started homeschooling my youngest when he was in preschool, and then my daughter, who is our middle child, she came home about a year and a half or so after that. Like I said, we didn't necessarily follow any kind of natural flow or pattern. It was more so a here is what our kids need at this time, and just kind of let it flow naturally from there. And we are still every year, we just kind of, have a gut check every year, like, is this still working? Is it still working for us as parents, us as a family, each individual child? And as long as it's still working, we continue to do it. So I feel like we've finally really hit our stride now that we've been a few years in.
So if I were to, cut to the chase, right? Somebody runs into you know, at the library. I don't know why library, coffee shop, and says, "All right, well, you're a classroom teacher. Why do you homeschool?"
I wish it were like this really easy, here is this one answer, right? But it never is. There's lots of layers to it. So, as myself, me, Sarah, I love teaching. That's the only thing I have ever wanted to do, like from the time I was little. That was my entire goal in life. And I spent many years working in the public education system. I worked with intervention services for quite a while. I finally achieved my lifelong goal of having my own classroom. And literally the first day I went, I love teaching. I'm not sure I love teaching in the school system. It just wasn't quite right. Um, some of my best friends are teachers. I love teachers. They are passionate about what they do. They do phenomenal work. It just wasn't quite the right fit for me because I like to kind of go with the flow and, meet kids where they are. And anyone who, is familiar with any school system, public or private, you have to get these 30 kids, however many kids, into a routine, and you need to follow a specific curriculum. And it just wasn't the right fit for me. So I transitioned first. I transitioned out of the classroom because I found Outschool. I started teaching on Outschool in 2017, which back then we were like a teeny tiny group. I think there were like 350 educators when I started, which is significantly fewer than there are now. And then my son started preschool, and we slowly realized that wasn't going to be the right fit for him either. And so we just, again, kind of had that gut check. We had a heart to heart, and we thought, can we do this? Is it possible? Because not only am I going to now homeschool, I'm going to work from home. I've always worked from home while homeschooling, which is an added layer, right, of things to add. And so we brought him home for his second year of preschool, just a little guy. And then my daughter at the time was in second grade, and she also just was having a little bit of difficulty in some areas. And I'm like, we can do this. We can come home and homeschool. And it's been like one of the best decisions I've ever made, both for myself professionally, working from home and teaching on Outschool, as well as homeschooling.
Um, Thank you, Megan, for popping in these banners. Great question. If you homeschool, let us know how long you've been homeschooling, or if you're considering schooling, let us know as well in the chat or in the comments. Hi, Jeff from Washington State. Thanks for tuning in. And so I think just some things to call out. So Sarah works for our social team. So when you comment, Sarah or Megan will, they'll be there to answer you. And we have some pretty wonderful experts, not only in homeschooling, but in education. So one, thank you for being on the front lines and answering all the questions that come in, Sarah. So I do want to encourage those who are new to Outschool, and maybe, hey, what is Outschool and what are these classes and how can that help my learner, whether they are in a brick and mortar school or whether they homeschool or anywhere in between. Sarah and Megan are here to help you out, and so I'm very excited that we're featuring Sarah and her expertise. And Sarah, again, you were a classroom educator for how long? I think I put in like 20 or 30 or 50 years or something in some of the copy, but how long were you a classroom educator for? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, so I was in the school system for 4 years, and then I have been homeschooling. Like I said, we just entered our seventh year. And that was in the traditional classroom. I came home pretty quickly because I realized it, like I said, it wasn't quite the right fit. So yeah, I was in the public school system about 4 years.
Um, can I ask what challenges? All right, so you said that it was your preschooler, and then you thought, well, your second grader as well would be good for
Mhm.
homeschooling. Can I ask what the challenges were?
Well, sure. My second grader, she's now a seventh grader. Um, she was just having some difficulties reading, which I think it was really more of just she just needed more time. It is really all that it was. She needed more time. And we would spend lots of time over the summer working on, which by the way, I taught language arts. So that was, kind of my wheelhouse. We would spend time over the summer working on decoding and specific, letter patterns and recognition and things like that, really concrete kind of rules, because that's how her brain works. Like, oh, I understand this, or we would learn a rhyme and it would, click. And then she would go back to school, and obviously you don't have that one-on-one time to really, go back and go, oh, hey, we learned this rhyme, or whatever the case was. And then we would lose that progress. And so it just seemed like a natural fit where, hey, she can come home, we have that time, we have the availability. And, sometimes kids just want to know, like, oh, yeah, we did learn this. And it's so nice because when she was in public school, I would say, well, what did your teacher say? Or, what did they teach you? Or what strategy did you use? Now I can go, oh, remember we learned this last month. We, did this because I'm there all the time. Or they'll see something and go, oh, we just learned about that. Like, yes, we did. And, we have this great conversation about it. So it wasn't that, she was facing these insurmountable challenges. It was more an opportunity where, I was like, I know that I can help. And it just seemed like a natural fit. And now she tests way above her grade level. Um, I was just talking to another parent about this today that like her comprehension is off the charts. We just needed a little bit of time in that decoding and some time to go at her own pace. And that is really the beauty of homeschooling for all of us, being able to work with our strengths at our own pace. If we need a break to go walk around the kitchen or go outside and swing and blow off some steam, we can, and then come right back to it.
Um, Congratulations on that progress for your learner. Uh, and all right, so let's see. Why this is like a mean question possibly. Why why homeschool versus just maybe switching for a different educator or a different school?
That is a great question. We're very fortunate. We live in an area where we have top rated schools. So, and it was never an issue with, oh, I don't like this teacher, or this teacher is doing something wrong, or we don't like the school system. That was never, ever the issue. In fact, I had worked with many of those educators and was friends with them. So it was never an issue of, you know, we don't like them, or they were doing something wrong. It was really more of a, hey, I have these skills. I have these skills. I'm available. I'm here. I am already working from home. At that point, we had already brought my youngest home. Why not? As a matter of fact, my oldest at one point during the pandemic, she was like, "Can I come home too?" But she was already in high school at that point, and I said, "You know what, honey? Let's finish out. Let's finish out in high school." But it's just it's that's the easy answer is I was here and available and I have the tools to help, so why not? It's not right for everyone, but it's right for our family.
What skills do you think you have that helped you homeschool?
Oh my goodness. I know my kids really well. And I think that is something anyone who homeschools, like maybe you don't know it right away, but you're gonna learn really quick. Really, really quickly, you're gonna say, we have a funny story where my daughter, she loves her wiggle seat. She likes to move. She's constantly like on the move. And, I'll see her sometimes, I'll say, do you have your wiggle seat? And she's like, no. I was like, go get your wiggle seat. You learn how your kids learn. And so it becomes this kind of second nature where you just, everyone kind of becomes in tune, especially the three of us who are at home all the time, where we just kind of naturally understand what the other person needs. And same thing, I will work on my computer at the table with them while they're doing, independent work. And they're like, Mom, are you okay? You seem stressed out. Or, did something happen? It's the same thing where we just learn to read each other intuitively in that way, which you can't get anywhere else.
That's very true. My 6-year-old just called me out recently. He goes, "Hey, are you mad?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "'Cause you go to the cupboard and eat something when you're mad." I was like, "Dude, all right, we're enrolling you in school tomorrow." This is like it's just, um
My kids will tell me I'm stress breathing. They go, "You're stress breathing, mom." I'm like, "Yeah, I am," because 'cause I'll just, like I'm just trying, to pull everything together. Like, "You're stress breathing." Like, "I am. It's okay."
Yeah, this is how we do it. This is how we do it.
Right.
Um, no, I do like that element because what I like about that because I feel like that's almost, you know, we said your kids really well, and I think that aspect there of paying attention to our kids and giving that attention to them is something that any parent, regardless of whether or not they were educators, or trained as educators or not, that any parent can really do.
Yeah.
Is to observe their kid, they know their kid and know what they might need. Um, even I remember reading something about gifted assessments for, kids who are gifted. And they said, 90 is like 90 something percent of parents who come in because they think their kid has, a learning difference is
Mhm.
is right.
Yeah.
So and we're not experts, we're just parents,
Right.
which I guess we're experts in our kids.
Yes, and that I was just gonna say, you might not be an expert because 'cause I'm not going to come on here and say, I'm an expert in how all of you should homeschool. For example, you had Megan on last week, and she and I are super close, we get along really well. We homeschool very differently, and there's nothing wrong, with either way that we homeschool. It's just what's right for our family, what works for our kids, for our learners. So yeah, I don't think there is any one expert in how to homeschool. It's more how do you homeschool your own child?
Absolutely. Speaking of, we have Jeff answering the question in the chat box who, let's see, homeschool 7 children at various times.
Ooh.
Nice. Congratulations, Jeff. And thank you for looking out for your learners. That's awesome.
And I taught fourth grade also, Jeff. So more power to you. Yes, fourth grade language arts.
Oh man, I love 4th grade. I feel like that where like imagination is still intact all the way and they're old enough to sort of know that we're using our imagination.
Yes, and still
Mhm.
be a little bit independent, but still young enough to like think maybe, you're a little bit cool, maybe if you're no promises.
And to know when the educator's being a little bit not cool.
Right, sure.
Oh man. So all right, agree or disagree. I remember when I was uh the first conversation where we sort of like broke it to my mom that we were homeschooling. And my mom was an educator. And when I brought that up, she said, well, you know, when you're teaching a big classroom, you have to teach the kids in the middle. And the
Yep,
kids who are really far up or the kids are behind, they don't get enough attention if your kid is on either end. Which is also another phrase I heard of like teaching down the middle.
sure. Yeah.
Um, agree or disagree?
I do agree. I think it has gotten better. From when I was in school, they were definitely teaching down the middle back when I was in school in like the 80s and 90s. I do think there is much more differentiation happening now. Um, but you still have, let's say, 25 learners and one person. Like, even if you are the best, most amazing teacher with all of the most fantastic tools in the world, it's still going to be really challenging because not only do you have different levels, which is where you get differentiation, where you have different reading levels, different math levels, but you also have different neurotypes, different learning styles. So a really funny story. It's funny now because I'm no longer there, but I got in trouble when I was a classroom teacher because we did spelling races, and we would race up to the board and they'd have to spell a word, and the kids were super into it, but they got really, really loud. So I became like that teacher because we were really loud and probably disrupting others in hindsight. I understand that now. But that doesn't work for everyone, right? You have people who are really physical learners who want to run up to the board. They love competition. There are others who hate competition and they just want to sit quietly at their desk and write and do their work. There are others who like to read independently, others who want to listen to audiobooks. I mean, it's challenging just with the two I have home because they have, some different learning styles and I want to accommodate those. It No human being is going to be able to hit all of those learning styles, all of those neurotypes all of the time. There are many wonderful, amazing teachers who do a fantastic job. It's one of those challenges of teaching in the classroom.
What is on the flip side, and this is something that I think I struggle with as well. It's like, at what point, there's sometimes in my head, it's like, there's not always going to be a situation that can accommodate my learner,
Sure.
right? That they're going to have to figure out on their own, maybe without accommodation. And what's that balance between, I don't know, or yeah, what do you think about that balance between, uh, I guess, setting them for this situation or expectation where they might always be accommodated versus, like, in the real world, you're going to have to figure things out for yourself or advocate for yourself. And I guess just this world that I don't know yet. I haven't figured it out.
And we're just getting there ourselves because now both of my kids are now middle school, junior high. So we are just entering that stage. I quite literally had this conversation with one of my kids today about advocating for themselves. Like if something, doesn't feel right, speak up. If you need something, speak up. In my house, we do standardized testing every year, not really for anything, because our state doesn't require that as a requirement for homeschool, but it's a skill, and so we learn how to take a test because if they want to go into post secondary or sometimes even job applications have tests, just something where we learn how to, read the question first, then go back and look for that information. Do we even need to read this whole passage in order to answer this question? Or can we look at the question and look at the choices and figure it out? And so it's a fine balance of, hey, we do accommodate these things. How can you either advocate for yourself or how can you make those accommodations for yourself if available? Um, I have a chronic illness. That's something I have been very open about. Working from home is an accommodation that I have chosen for myself. That wasn't something that I, necessarily actively went and said others need to accommodate. I just know that that's something that works well for me. And so that's what I have chosen to do. And so yeah, it's a fine line. There's no one right answer. It's a little bit of everything. How can you advocate for yourself and how can you find those accommodations within the real world?
Um, I feel like that loops back to what you said about the skill set of that that means you can homeschool of your learner. And what I'm if we know our learner, we can also learn from one another and we can sort of teach our learner what we're seeing about what they might need. In that they can then know what they need from the real world, right? Because
Right.
apparently homeschooling isn't the real world to to
It's
some
the
folks,
real
just to
world.
say.
It's all the real world out here.
Right, it's all the real world. So, right, it's right, we can know what we need and help hopefully um teach our learners what they might need or help them to understand what they need for their own learning and for their own safety and for their own ability to maneuver through the world. And then in that, then they can choose to make the steps uh that they need versus at least the way I've grown up is I figured out how to maneuver.
Yeah.
And I figured out how to maneuver without really knowing. It's like, oh, this whole time I was stressed out this entire time doing that. And yeah, I functioned and it functioned well, but not internally.
Right.
Um,
And that's kind of what I was going back to, which I think I'm a bit older than you are, but going back to when yes, going back to when at least I was in school, it was do it this way, right? This is how you learn to function. Did I function? Sure. Do I function much better working from home and homeschooling? Yes. It's so much better. The quality of life is so much better, and it's so much you don't realize what you're missing until you have it, and then you're like, oh yes, this is what I needed all of these years.
mm, absolutely. Um, well, thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us today, and thank you, Devin and Jeff, for your comments. And we also have some questions coming in. Um, let's see. Oh, thank you, Megan, for jumping in these questions.
Let's
Oh,
see. Oh, I see a couple. What was it about the public school system you didn't like? Again, it wasn't that I didn't like the whole public school system. Um, if I'm being totally honest, I felt that I didn't have enough time to actually teach. I had a lot of time to manage the classroom. I had a lot of time to the school system that I was in. We changed classes, so I saw about 100 fourth graders every day, and so by the time we would line up, we would switch classes. We'd get everybody back in. We'd get everybody settled down, and then we would, go over what the assignment was. Like it was time for everybody to get back up and line back up and go back out the door. And so we get so much done. Like we will typically finish our curriculum by like April, just because, and we only homeschool about 3-ish hours a day, sometimes 4, depending on what we have. Um, Yes, I see we have some other fellow public school teachers who homeschool. Hello, welcome.
I
So
mean,
again,
virtual.
yeah, so it wasn't, I'm not saying, oh, the public school system is horrible and bad. It wasn't right for me. I really just wanted to teach. I was less focused on classroom management and, things like that. That was not something that I was necessarily called to do.
Yeah, and um, on that note, sort of, I was realizing too, like, I think I've had amazing public school educators. Um, but I think also I had this like magical combination of public school educators who saw that like that I needed something extra, and they just made that happen for me. They're like, okay, you already done this, and they gave me that extra, and that was magic. So definitely out shout to the public school
Yes.
educators, especially my particular teachers. Just love them. Um, we have some other questions, Sarah, from Instagram.
Yes. Let's see. Are you still able to enjoy your time off from school, like outside the classroom? Yes. My quality of life is wonderful. It really is, because some days we just go, we're going to the zoo, and we go to the zoo. And that is our school day for the day. We are in homeschool groups. We were in a formal co op. Now we have just a more of a social group. Um, and it's not for everyone, because at least myself and my 2 youngest, we are together all the time, like all of the time, all the time. So it's one of those, right, Fernando? You get it.
All the time.
All the time, and I love them. But, so you do have to build in those breaks to things like that. But it's just a different way of living, right? School is living, living is school. It's all together. So yes, we absolutely do enjoy our time, and we take summers off. So we do not homeschool over the summer. Let's see. And then someone was concerned. Let's see. They have a sixth grader with a disability, and he's worried about post secondary education, where to get curriculum, and if you have to be a teacher to homeschool. This is a tricky question, because it is based a lot on where you live. States have different homeschooling laws and requirements, so that is probably the place you want to start. Is if you're in the United States, Googling, your state and homeschool laws. Where I live in Ohio, you do not have to be a certified teacher, but you do, I think you have to have a bachelor's. Um, so there are different requirements you have to go through and look through and see. Now in Michigan, my neighbor, you pretty much just tell them you're homeschooling and you're done. So it's really state by state. And then same with curriculum. There is so much out there and so much available. Of course, OutSchool, great resource. My kids are taking OutSchool classes too. But there are so many options to choose from. But I would definitely start with your state regulations. And is teaching on OutSchool compared to teaching in public school? Oh, how is it? Teaching on OutSchool is so wonderfully freeing. Like so wonderfully freeing. I can teach what I want to teach in the way that I want to teach it. So it's been phenomenal. Like people say things are life changing, and that sounds like it's hyperbole, but it was really life changing because it set me on the course to homeschool and work from home and be exactly where I am now. Let's see. I'm trying to catch all of these questions.
Yeah,
Uh,
we got some good ones coming in.
yes. Does OutSchool, are we inclusive of children with intellectual and or developmental disabilities? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I have ever come across a platform that is as inclusive as OutSchool is. Megan and I were just talking about this on Monday, but all abilities, locations, learning styles, anything you could possibly think of, absolutely. OutSchool is 100% inclusive. Oh my
Um,
goodness. Lots of questions still. And how many hours per day does a 6-year-old need? Not that many. I don't know. Fernando, you have a 6-year-old, don't you?
yeah.
Oh.
Um, we're well, I think it's mostly about like play at 6 years old. You know, particularly we have one that's driven and you know, my wife who takes the homeschooling lead, she's very good about like these particular curriculum in specific subjects, and our particular 6-year old is all about like I'm getting this done, which is great and cool. But like I'm more like, "Ah, go play."
Right.
uh yeah, I think play is the most important thing at 6 years old,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. I mean, and there are so many things at 6 that count as play because 6 here in the US, I imagine would be like end of kindergarten, beginning of first grade. I mean, if you were to walk into a public school classroom, you would see a lot of like hands-on learning centers, play. Uh, I think it's probably 2 recesses, at least in my district. That's roughly what they would have at that age. So, I mean, certainly at home, I wouldn't expect it to be a lot of sitting down at a table learning. I'd say maybe an hour of like really like sitting at the table, like paperwork learning.
Yeah,
Um,
like over the course of the day.
yeah,
uh,
right. Just like sit here for a minute and or let's, at that age too, it's a lot of let's read this book together
mm,
or, go to
how
the
many
library.
eggs did we crack for breakfast? Or help
Yeah.
me fold this napkin
Yes.
and wipe the table.
Yeah, or we set up a grocery store in our kitchen, and then we had to learn about money and change and things like that. Like, okay, you have to go buy 3 bananas and it costs this. I mean, it's a really great hands-on way to learn. And a lot of people might go, really? This is school, but it sticks with them. To this day, my kids, again, who are now fifth grade, seventh grade, we learned about plate tectonics by using peanut butter and graham crackers. And to this day, they'll go, "Oh, I know about that. It's the graham crackers and peanut butter." I'm like, "Yes, it's not called that, but that's what it is." And so they like still remember it now because again, we were all together and doing it, and we learned about the center of the earth making a pizza. Yeah, it's memorable.
We got a question saying, "What is out school?" Great question, Sarah. Do you want to get on that one
Go for it.
or me?
Go for it.
All right. Oh, let's see. OutSchool is an online learning community where you can get up to 140,000. We have over 140,000 classes for kids online, from small group classes to one-on-one tutoring to asynchronous online communities for kids. I will actually pop on that banner. Thank you for the reminder. Oh, we can have 2 banners now.
Ooh.
Oh, look at that. Fancy. And if you are new to OutSchool, we encourage you to use Go Live 10 for $10 off your first class. Again, that is Go Live 10 for $10 off your first class.
All
But
capitals. All capitals and
oh,
one and
does it capital
it is.
matter? Oh,
It is. Yeah, all capitals and a 1 and a 0. Go Live
all
10.
right. Excellent. That being said, let's see, do we have any further questions that we haven't seen?
I paused my game to be here. My son should absolutely have that shirt because he doesn't pause his game to be a lot of places. So yes, I paused my game to be here. Absolutely. And yes, UK students can absolutely use OutSchool. Absolutely. We have learners everywhere. Yes, I Miss Devon. I know Devon. Hi, Devon.
Yes, and Miss Devon's gonna be on, I think, coming up pretty
Oh,
soon in October, I believe, for OutSchool Live. So thank you, Miss Devon, for being here. Well, Sarah, is there anything that we've missed or anything that you'd like to, any final words of wisdom about, homeschooling or teachers who homeschool? Anything that we haven't said?
yeah, I don't know if I have any great words of wisdom. I think if there are people out there who are interested in homeschooling and maybe they're a little apprehensive, they're a little bit scared, just try it. I mean, we literally said we're going to try this for 1 year. That's what we said. We're going to try it for 1 year. If it doesn't work, everybody goes back to school. I go back to, teaching outside of the home. And we just really enjoyed it. So, it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be this permanent decision, although I know many of us, it ends up being a permanent decision. But, give it a try. And if you are looking for some great classes, I'm going to give a shout out to myself and Megan here. If you're looking for some great classes, Megan and I are both homeschooling parents and educators. We are always happy to give you some personalized recommendations. So you can comment here on this video. You can send us a DM on any of our social accounts, OutSchool social accounts, and we will find just the right class for your learner.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. We'll leave it at that. And again, just as Sarah said, go ahead and leave a message on any of these threads on any of the social accounts if you have any questions about OutSchool, homeschooling, how to support your learner. We have excellent teammates, Sarah and Megan, who are there to help you. And if you have any further questions, join us in the parent community, which again, Megan and Sarah can point you to as well. And don't forget to use coupon Go Live 10 for $10 off your first class. And that works in the UK, that works across the globe. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. And we will catch you next week on OutSchool Live. So let me hit us up with some going away music. Thank you, Sarah.